It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for Season 11 of The Walking Dead. In this video, I'm going to be doing my review for the series finale, Season 11, Episode 24, which was called Rest in Peace. Obviously, if you haven't watched the episode, you probably don't want to watch my review because I will be going through some of the details of the episode. So if you haven't watched it, it will spoil it for you. So with that said, we'll be right back with this review. Alright, as always, before we dive into it, smash the like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. With that said, let's get right into it. So overall, I would say I thought this was a solid season finale. It was a pretty cool way to end the Commonwealth storyline. So as a season finale, I would say it was a decent episode. As the ending of the Commonwealth story, it was slightly underwhelming, but for the series finale, it was definitely not the best series finale. Like, it could have been a lot better. Like, they went with the bare minimum and they gave us everything that we were kind of hoping for, but they gave us the minimum. So because of that, I feel like this episode had a lot more to offer, and I feel like for the most part, we got maybe half of what we really should have gotten. So let's go through some of the details. For the most part, everything surrounding Judith's injury and everything to do with getting her to the hospital and trying to treat her and everything like that, I thought that was great. Although I feel like the Judith getting shot and injured was really a shock value type of thing, because we knew that they're not going to kill Judith, or a lot of fans were fairly confident that Judith is not going to die, so there wasn't enough tension there. Even though they did their best to make it intense and make everything related to Judith's injury seem significant, it really wasn't that significant. It was dealt with quite quickly, even though it was pretty big cliffhanger from the previous episode. And I feel like for the most part, the only thing that really came out of Judith's injury was it was a sort of Easter egg from the comic book, because it was a remixed version of the comic story or a variation of it. It was also a sort of callback to Carl getting shot multiple times in the past, and in a way it was really just symbolism for what's to come. So storyline wise, I don't think it added a lot to the story, but if you look at it from a writing perspective and from a symbolism perspective, it was definitely cool. When it comes to Judith's injury, I would say this episode suffered quite significantly, and the reason for that is because there wasn't a lot of intensity, because we knew that it was very unlikely for them to kill Judith off. Same sort of thing when it comes to characters that we know are going to be in the spin-offs. So any scene Maggie, Negan, Daryl, and Carol were involved in didn't have that much intensity to them, because we knew that nothing is going to happen to those characters because they're going to make it. That takes us to the stuff related to the ending of the Commonwealth story. Even though I did really enjoy what they did with the Commonwealth storyline and how they ended it, I feel like it was slightly underwhelming and they could have done a lot more with it. In my opinion, it was sort of as underwhelming as the ending of the Commonwealth story in the comic book series. Even though, generally speaking, the Commonwealth story was done better in the TV show, the ending, in my opinion, was just as underwhelming and disappointing as the comic book. And I think a lot of it had to do with what they did with Pamela and Lance. I feel like for the whole last 8 episodes, and even before that, they were really making Lance to be the big bad of the Commonwealth, and they were sort of putting Pamela in a position where she was not necessarily the evil actor of everything wrong with the Commonwealth. But I don't think they utilized Lance enough to really make him be the big bad. And his death in the previous episode was really, really underwhelming. And on top of that, what they did, leaving the fate of Oceanside ambiguous, made the impact that Lance as a character had on the story more insignificant and underwhelming. Now, on top of that, I feel like what they did with Pamela in the series finale, where she saw Lance as a walker and all of the scenes related to that, would have been super awesome if they build it up and had Pamela and Lance have that sort of connection. Like, I didn't feel like Pamela gave a damn about Lance. I feel like for Pamela, Lance was really a tool. So seeing Pamela react to seeing Lance in that scene wasn't really that impactful because it didn't feel genuine. You know what I mean? Now, one thing I did absolutely love though is what they did with Gabriel in this scene, having him walk up to the gates to open the door for the people that were outside, which was obviously meant to be a callback, how he was introduced, how he left out his congregation and everything. And I feel like it was really a way to circle his story back around. So that was one of the positive parts in this episode for the Commonwealth storyline. Now, when it comes to Maggie and everything that they did with Maggie, not killing Pamela and everything like that, I absolutely loved that. And the reason for that is because it lined up perfectly with what they did with Negan, and it helped a lot in kind of building up the story between Maggie and Negan even further, which is obviously gonna be great because it's set up for their spin-off, or it's something that helped their spin-off feel more natural and come together in a better sort of way. Now, with that said, let's talk about the big death. Obviously, we had 2 deaths in this episode, or 3, I should say. We had Luke, his girlfriend, Jules, and Rosita. Now, when it comes to Jules, that was a background character, so let's not even talk about her. When it comes to Luke, it would have been a sort of impactful death if Luke was around more. He disappeared for like an entire season just to come back and be killed off. So that death was really underwhelming. So really, the big death of the series finale was Rosita. And in my opinion, it wasn't that big of a death. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like a series finale episode of this caliber should have had 2 major deaths. So if they killed Rosita, they should have had a bigger death. For example, Gabriel or Aaron. Or, better yet, they should have gone with some more big character deaths, because we haven't really seen that many big character deaths in season 11 so far. We've seen some sort of big character deaths here and there, but nothing too significant. You know what I mean? So I was expecting to see some major deaths, especially because we knew most of the big survivors weren't gonna die, like Daryl, Negan, Maggie, and Carol. I feel like they should have killed maybe Aaron or Gabriel to make up for that. So Rosita's death was really underwhelming, and I feel like it was the bare minimum of a death. The other aspect of it is the way that her death came together was really, really underwhelming and disappointing. For one, it was spoiled in a way in the trailers that they released months ago. So it took away a lot of the intensity and a lot of the shock value. And also the way that it came together was really, really clunky, even though it was definitely surprising the way it came together. It wasn't done the best way. Now, when it comes to the actual ending, outside of the post-credit scene, all of the stuff related to Daryl, Carol, Maggie saying that we need to talk about the future and all of that, and Daryl saying goodbye to go look for Rick, and the scenes with Judith and RJ, I thought that this was a pretty solid ending, even though I was disappointed because if they teased the Daryl spin-off, they should have teased the Negan and Maggie one. I've already done a video talking about why they might not have gone that direction, but I still think that they should have done something to tease the Negan and Maggie spin-off as well. But I did really like what they did with Daryl and how they had him go out there searching for Rick, hence teasing at his spin-off. Now, speaking of Negan and Maggie, I do want to talk a little bit about all of the story related to Negan and Maggie in this episode and all of the scenes with the two of them. I actually really enjoyed the dialogue with Negan and Maggie, and I thought that the scene with the two of them, the heart-to-heart conversation that they had, was really done well. Although I feel like it was sort of underwhelming, and the reason for that is because I feel like what they did with Negan in one of the previous episodes, having him try to sacrifice himself, sort of ended that whole story. So if this came in that same episode, it would have had more impact. I feel like this was really after the fact, and it didn't really have the impact that it should have had. You know what I mean? Like, we've already had a lot of time to kind of visualize and imagine this conversation after seeing the Negan trying to sacrifice himself scene, which was really set up for this conversation. So I feel like if there was less time between those two, it would have had more impact. But other than that, I really enjoyed their conversation, and I think that that dialogue really came together quite nicely. With that said, let's talk about the post-credit scene with Rick. Even though I loved to see Rick back, it was great, and I absolutely enjoyed it. I feel like it was the bare minimum, and the reason for that is because they gave us everything that we were already talking about for months and months and months, even years in some cases. So, as a reveal, it didn't pack too much. As a cameo, it was cool, but it didn't really give us any major reveals. And it really wasn't anything significant enough to have an impact on the story. You know what I mean? And I feel like this could have very well have been a teaser that they put after the actual episode. It didn't even feel like a post-credit scene. The way that they did it felt like a teaser. Like if they gave us a really action-packed scene with Rick or something like that, it would have been cool, but the way that they did it was sort of insignificant and sort of disappointing. Now, outside of the Rick stuff, the Michonne stuff was even more disappointing because it didn't really have anything. Everything we saw with Michonne, they could have done in her last episode, and it wouldn't have changed anything, and it wouldn't have, you know, impacted the story in any way. So it was really just an insignificant scene that they added in just to add a scene with Michonne, you know what I mean? But that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about in this video. I mean, like I said, this was a pretty cool season finale. Even as a series finale, first time viewing it was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. You can see it in my reaction that I enjoyed it. But it didn't have the impact that it should have had as a series finale. And I feel like it could have been a way better of a series finale. So because of that, it was definitely really disappointing. And obviously, if we factor out the Rick and Michonne post-credit scene, the episode itself didn't really feel like a series finale. It felt like a season finale. But that's pretty much my review for the series finale. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash the like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.